إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum salam. Welcome to the Young Smokes podcast. I'm here in Toronto, or Toronto, I should say. We're here with Coach Zubair. Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Assalamu rahmatullah.
How are you doing, Aki?
Alhamdulillah, very well. How are you?
Good morning, bro.
Good morning.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, very snowing morning.
Yeah, it started to snow today, and you've given me Canada's finest Tim Hortons, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. So how you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I've been very well. How are you?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
How are you finding Toronto so far?
It's amazing, bro. And I just want to thank you for all your help and support, helping me organize some of the lectures and making it easy for me. Alhamdulillah.
Some spoilers on the way, right?
Yeah, subhanAllah. It's really good, alhamdulillah. So yeah, I just want to introduce people to you because mashallah, you're very active in Dawa and especially new Muslim support, mashallah. And you're known as Coach Zubair. You coach Muslims as well. And tell us a bit about yourself, because you don't work for a particular organization. You work with many organizations like myself, Abu Huraira in Toronto, iERA, IslamWise, and we've really, especially at IslamWise in the UK, we've really appreciated your support with the new Muslim support. Jazakallah khair. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean my approach has been like more of like mission oriented, right? So figuring out, what's happening, like what's the goal, right, and what's missing. And where my interests lie, like what are the areas that I think I can deliver value in, and then essentially aligning with people and organizations to make it happen, right? So I think we have a lot of different organizations, and the focus of organizations also change from year to year, month to month, quarter to quarter, what have you. So just figuring out, okay, you know what, I want to focus on this thing for this year or the next 2-3 years, and then seeing who else is doing that and how we can collaborate, right? So I think that's something that you can get a lot of value for that, right? I mean, so my day job is into cybersecurity, right? So over there you have a threat, right? You're seeing that, okay, how do we basically take care of these cyber criminals, right? And last 5 years or 6 years, there's been a lot of dialogue on how different corporations can collaborate, because the end goal is to protect the client or the customer or the organization or government, whatever, right? So if you don't collaborate and you're just like in your silos, then you're kind of hurting the Dawa. So I think, even the commercial people, they're getting that, right? And I think we need to get more and more of that. So there will always be like differences and whatnot, but you can find this sort of common ground and align values and common mission. So that's kind of like the approach I take to basically escalate and scale the Dawa, inshallah.
MashaAllah. So how did you get involved in Dawa and supporting the new Muslims? I'm sure you got many interesting stories.
So, I mean, my personal journey, like, I started with, when I started learning about Islam seriously and, learning the Arabic language and so on and so forth, one thing that I found really, really beneficial and transforming was basically the ability to understand Qur'an. And that's what I started with my public work, is basically helping people, connect the Arabic to English or whatever language they're, working on. So that's something I started with. We were calling it Understanding Qur'an or Tadabbur al-Qur'an. You have several programs around that, like Al-Huda being one of the major one that I have seen influence a lot of people. So I started teaching that locally. I still do that. I think it's super important. And so I did with IOU as well. We recorded some courses on that. So that was my first attempt at public Dawa.
MashaAllah.
And so obviously when you do that, then you're like, wow, this is amazing, right? And it's so life-changing, and you want to share it with people. And I was working with IBM back then, and we started talking to our colleagues and, sharing the message of Islam with them. And then obviously I think somehow I also came across iERA, saw your videos and whatnot, and then seeing, okay, this is how people are talking and giving Dawah. So when I started doing that, I realized that this is very powerful, because at that time, I mean, it wasn't just like, okay, you're giving it to other people, but you also felt spirituality in it. So it depends, like the way you're doing
it. Kind of for yourself as well.
Yeah.
You benefit yourself.
Exactly. And one thing I would say, like, it was more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islam itself, right? So the actual message of the deen versus the debate, right? So there's two different elements, so we can talk about it. But like when you're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're bringing in Quran, so it kind of becomes your own iman boost as well, right? And then you see that sometimes you see, people would rebuttal you or make an argument, and you're like, subhanallah, Quran is saying that they say this, and then tell them. So you see that sort of alignment, right? So that was really beautiful. And yeah, I mean, alhamdulillah, you kind of saw, okay, this is how it works. You talk to a whole bunch of different people. we started going for street dawah, and you can get shahadas and all that stuff, all 9 yards. But then I started observing the behind the scenes things, right? Stuff that's not out in the public eye. And that was, we would go for dawah, and then we would get people's number, and then we'll call them the next day, and like they say, yeah, I'm busy, or they wouldn't pick up your phone, and I'm like, okay, so where is this going? Like, what am I investing my time in, right? So then
this is a huge issue.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, I see this all over the world.
True. Yeah.
You know these quick shahadas, if you like, people accept Islam. They say the shahada.
Yeah.
Whether they accept Islam, Allah knows best. But
True.
we see many people who actually say the shahada. And what level of Islam that is, we don't know. A lot of the time, people don't go on to pray. They don't go on to take it any further than that. And there is a lack of support for new Muslims, but at the same time, also with the new Muslims, not all of them are actually fully convinced and actually they've actually embraced Islam fully. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's the exact thing. So then I started talking to other du'as. I'm like, what's your experience been like, right? What do you do when people take shahada with you? And sadly, I realized that not many people even make the calls. They're like, yeah, we just give them the card to the masjid and so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay. So then that's when I realized that, look, I mean, and that's one of the things I also try to find, that, okay, there's a gap. Let me, try to make some changes there. So I stopped doing the street dawah, and then I started focusing on understanding what's happening in the new Muslim space. Right. And then, I mean, we would still do that because, I mean, with Abu Huraira Centre, like we get a lot of people just coming in by their own selves, or, a friend bringing them in. Alhamdulillah, we get a lot of people, and that's another venue.
I think that's more authentic.
Yes.
When somebody comes to the masjid themselves, makes that step themselves, or they've done some investigation and some research beforehand.
Right.
You see these people much stronger.
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity out there for that. And also, I think the second thing is, instead of us, I'm not saying that it should be completely abandoned. I think one of the benefit of a street dawah is that it helps you train people, right? So if you have a new batch of students or what have you, that you want to train them, one of the easiest ways to take them on the street. They don't know those people. You can fool around. Even if you get rejected, it's fine, right? But eventually, I think what really is beneficial is to start talking to the people around you. Because these are the people that you see day in and day out, and if you can do it properly and have a an expectation around it, that you're not talking about it all the time, but you are vocal about who you are, and you have shared the message of Islam with them, and then you can have gradual chats over coffee, or what have you, once a week, once a month, whatever, because then that could be a gradual development.
Just being conscious that you're trying to convey the message to the people around you, and even Muslims as well. People who they're not practicing, being that good example.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we'll come to that when I want to talk to you about new Muslim, because that's another opportunity. But if we just want to let's say wrap up on this the Dawa front, I think I think some of the things that we could really do better at is focusing on people that are around us in our own networks, right? And you see that business people. So for example, in my building, there's a concierge, right? And then there's a guy. So I had my eye on it, was building rapport, and what I'm like, okay, one day I'm gonna sit down with him and have a chat about religion, right? And so before I even do that, look at what he does. Like, yeah, Zubair, you know what? This is just my night job. Daytime, I'm actually I deal with investments. So here's my card. If you're looking for any investments, let's have a chat, right? So you can think how people think when they have an actual product and business line, right? And how they are planning towards it, and sometimes how we are shy to even share the message of Islam, right? So I think So anyways, when I started seeing the sort of gaps, and then I say, okay, what's happening in the new Muslim space, right? So you have people that you find on the street. That's one stream. Then you have people that come in because of marriage, right? That's another big opportunity. A lot of people, especially masajid. So if imams can take a note of those people and then pass on to their new Muslim team, I think that's a huge opportunity. Then you have third stream, which you were mentioning earlier, is that many Muslims are just like namesake Muslims as well, right? And what is happening is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub," right? And then the true happiness and content is only found in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you don't have that, you will have a constricted life. So many youth and people are facing that. So what happens is they come to the masjid and you can see those new faces, right? And or in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan, so they can actually be developed just like a new Muslim.
So you just treat them exactly the same as a...
Yeah, I mean,
in that sense. Of
right,
course,
yeah.
they have some background.
Exactly. So they have, the benefit there is that they may know the Fatiha, or they may know some Arabic, and they may have family that may know about those things. But I'm saying that, you know, that's another venue. As we're saying that, you know, you could have that sort of dawah that's happening for those people as well, right?
Yeah. So where did Coach Zubair come from?
Okay.
How is this intertwined with your dawah, your new Muslim support?
Yeah. Okay, great. So as I was, I would say like 2 years ago, what have you, right? So what I realized is that, okay, so we have this gap, and then we have these, you know, Muslims that are basically finding that sort of like, you know, distance from Islam, right? From practicing Islam. So they may get inspired from a conference or lecture, what have you, but then they don't know what to do next, right? And I think over there and some of my other readings, and then, you know, people calling all the different titles, Sheikh and Ustad and this and that. So I just like picked this up. I think somehow between different dialogues, it came up, right? And I think another reason it came up was me helping with Abu Huraira Centre. One of the requests that we get is a lot of people, you know, want to come to the masjid to have a problem solved, right? So whether it be marriage counseling, or whether it be like, you know, parents saying, oh, my child is messed up, or they don't know where they're going in life and whatnot. So that's something I got really involved with, because that's something that really burdens the imam, right? It's a huge load of thing that comes in. So I built some program and some structure and deployed it at Abu Huraira. So how can we start tackling those requests? Because people would just like send you an email or give you a call like, yeah, this is a problem, like, right? So it's just like a huge amount of burden on the imam. So we said, okay, how do we then start tackling that problem? So over there, one of the things that we started saying is that, look, this is not a passive thing, right? So you kind of started changing the narrative that we're going to be acting as coach, if you will, and we'll be taking a look at the problem or the issue at hand, and we want to have a plan on how you can actually go about and change that. Which means that you are the one who's going to be taking the action, and we are just basically sounding board, you know, suggestions, ideas, and holding you accountable and so on, and giving you like a way to change your life, basically. So that's the narrative that, okay, it's not a preacher, it's not that, but it's like, okay, we are agreeing on a goal, and then making, you know, going towards
get through them issues, mashallah. Jazakallah khair, bro. SubhanAllah. So what advice would you give to, you know, people who are starting up in dawah? You know, people, you know, we have a lot of youth that are really, you know, they've got a lot of energy, they want to do something for Allah. What advice would you give these people who are just starting their journey of dawah?
Right. So I think, yeah, so even before, so what I typically, my current approach is that when you see people, a lot of time people, what are people doing in their lives, right? So I think that's a very important question. What are you doing with your life, right? And a lot of time people would be just like wasting their lives, right? I mean, they would have some sort of productivity, and they would be like watching sports or just talking about other people and not doing much, right? So part of that reason comes in is because you may have low expectations from yourself. You may think, oh, you know what, I'm not able to do much or whatever, what am I good for? And that's part of that whole coaching paradigm that, look, you know, you are, first of all, value your life, realize what you're able to do, right? So I think, so my approach is that I'm not going and saying, oh, everybody should get into dawah or this type of dawah. My first message is to, you know, value your life, right? And then see what you can do, right? Is there something that is productive and that excites you today? So find that thing that, okay, look, I'm excited. And then some people, oh, I don't know well, you don't have to be married to that project for the rest of your life. Just figure out something that's exciting for you for the next 2 or 3 years, let's say, right? And that will, you know, help you get up early, right? And, you know, you want to get on your feet, you want to do, and you want to produce something. So find that interest, right? Now, how do you find that is basically being exposed to things, right? Not just sitting at home and watching YouTube or Netflix or what have you, but, you know, podcasts I think are a great example, because one of the reason you can actually hear about a lot of different people, their journeys, what they're doing, and so on and so forth. You know, Muslim space, non-Muslim space. So you can learn about different things that are happening, and you find your passion. So if your passion happens to be dawah, and then, you know, keeping it objective, right? Because regardless of what you choose, there could be different things that can drag you down. You could have a lot of different blind spots, and then you just like be dragged down, and you're not being productive, right? So even within the dawah, you know, a lot of people get into dawah, and then if the objective is not clear, if they don't have a senior mentor or a senior da'i, they can make the mistakes that other people have made, right? And some of those mistakes are just like debating for no reason.
So finding a mentor, someone who can, with more experience and knowledge.
Exactly, yeah. So and then so who can help you see your progress, right? So what is my object? So I see, for example, people, you know, they say, oh yeah, I'm into Dawa, and what do you do? Well, I just keep watching YouTube, right? And I keep watching these debates, and I keep watching, like, you know, what's that place in UK?
Hyde Park.
Hyde Park, right? Okay, well, so what's the objective? Like, you've been doing that for 2 years, 3 years. Have you even conveyed the message to your buddy in school?
A lot of sometimes it becomes dawah-tainment.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Not from the time of, not from the perspective of the da'i, but from the perspective of the consumer, the one who's watching the content.
Right.
That it's just some passive information. You know, it's entertaining.
Exactly.
Where they're not actually learning and benefiting. They're not internalizing and understanding the arguments and the you know. So you know, what do you think about like a structured you know, course? Something that can actually help them with the basics of Islam. You know, I think this is really important for you know, Muslims as well as people, especially people who are going to convey the message.
Exactly, yeah. So I think, so from that angle, right? So once now we, like, say people like yourself, we're seeing that, okay, Muslim youth have interest in this, right? So you want to now capitalize on that interest, right? So if we give them something structured, right? So there a lot of, I mean, some of the new Muslim mentors that I've worked with, they came in because they were attracted to the new Muslim Dawa, right? But as a you know, manager or someone who's running that team, now you can actually take that opportunity to develop those volunteers, right? So they may not realize that. Alhamdulillah, I mean, I've seen, like, you know, some people coming in, some coaches coming in, and over the years, I mean, I do, like, you know, I hope that, you know, their own development counts something between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Because now they're asking the question, they're coming to the durus, they're, you know, looking at things. So we can definitely take that as an, so the attraction is, as you said, a dawah-tainment, right? But now how do we capitalize on that by giving them this sort of structured studies where, you know, many people may not even know the basics of the deen, or they may not be, you know, on top with their own practice.
You know,
and
this is something I've found as well. You know, as you know, I've got a Dawa course, a very basic Dawa course. It's not for, it's not aimed at people who are full-time du'ats, but aimed at the average Muslim. You know, like you were saying, how can you give dawah to the people around you, your own family, your people at work, your colleagues, etc. So it's kind of getting every Muslim, you know, enough knowledge to be able to convey the message. And what I found is, so many of the Muslims, they don't know, I wouldn't say they don't know the basics, but they don't know how to articulate the basics. And I would even go as far as to say a lot of them don't know the basics as well. You know, it's so important that they get this basic training and knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%,
right? So I think this is super important, right? So, and as you said, like, you know, actually understanding the argument and internalizing it, right? Not just like being a parrot that's, okay, I'm just repeating the argument, but understanding why is the other person even asking that question, you know, what's behind that, and then being able to kind of, you know, change that sort of narrative, right? I mean, one key thing, like, you know, if you ask people, like, how many people even understand what this life is about, right? So, you know, if your perspective is like, hey, you know what, I'm just here to chill, and, you know, at a resort, at a vacation, God is just supposed to take care of me, there should be no pain and whatnot, and that's where a lot of these questions are coming from, right? That, okay, why is there pain and whatnot? But because if you ask, like, a Muslim as well, like, what's going on, like, why are we here, what's this world about, right? And, you know, if you may say, okay, I'm just here to worship, or, like, you know, right? And that ayah, and then, okay, Allah is not creating anybody but for his worship. But what does that mean, right? And then, and being able to, you know, narrate it to people, right? So, I mean, for example, I would say that, look, you know, if you are coming to me as a guest, right, I have different expectations, right? So right now, as a podcast guest, I have a different expectation of how you would treat me, right? But if you're meeting in the gym, or if a training ground, right, and then I wouldn't be expecting to be comfortable, right? If I am trusting you with, you know, developing me and testing me, or even in university, what have you, you're supposed to test me and put me in different situations. And when you challenge me, I'm not here to hate you or thinking that you're incapable of it, but because that challenge is designed to bring the best out of me, and to help me understand my shortcomings and how I can overcome those, right? So if you see this world, for example, from that angle, the whole paradigm changes, right? What makes you feel, what helps you feel happy or content is different than.
You know, I want to ask you, you know, you do have a career, and how do you manage your work life, your family life, and your dawah life all at
Yeah.
the same time, because especially working with new Muslims, it's not easy.
Right.
You know, you're basically on call 24/7, right? You know, you never know when someone's going to call you and they need help. They've just been chucked out of their house or whatever it may be.
Right.
How do you manage?
Yeah, so that's not, I don't manage well. Let's just be honest. It's a struggle, right? You could do certain things, like certain techniques that have, you know, to help you do things, right? So for example, you know, isolating times and, you know, blocks of time, you know, having different fonts for different things, you know, changing your notification and stuff like that. And then also stepping back and thinking about, you know, because I think a lot of time what happens is that, okay, if you're just doing the work. So I think there's two important things here, right? One is sometimes people are just doing the work and they don't get the time to step back and see, okay, how I can scale, right? How can I start now training other people so we can distribute that, right? And that itself is an art, to basically be able to see that and, you know, create products or services or manuals that can be used by other people. So that's one thing, and that requires, you know, okay, taking time off from actual work on the ground and then being able to talk to other people and train them. The other extreme of that is sometimes people just become trainers and they're so distanced from the actual reality. So I mean, you could see that for them, sometimes I would see a training approach and I'm like, okay, well, are people really asking these questions, right? Or are you just creating this training so that you have a next training? Right?
True.
What is the actual problem that's happening on the ground, right? So this is something really important to especially as, you know, people who are leading the organizations or us, to really understand that, look, it's not about, you know, us creating flashy products and flashy training. It's like, okay, what is the problem and what actually is the gap? And sometimes the solution can be boring. Right. And this is something we talk about, like in for example, in cybersecurity, right? That, look, I mean, as researchers or whatever, we like to talk about, like, you know, flashy stuff, right? Okay, you know what, your phone got hacked and this and that and this, you know, FaceTime bug and whatever. These are cool things, but these are not things that are going to be affecting the average user, right? The things that affects are like boring stuff, like, you know, have a, you know, two-factor authentication, don't use your password, right? So these are boring stuff, but that's the real important stuff, right? And that's where it kind of comes into the new Muslim Dawa, that a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm interested in this argumentative Dawa. Person takes shahada and I'm like happy and give up.
And it's not the reality on the ground. Most people you're speaking to giving dawah, they're not
They
in a
don't-
debate. They're always, they want to listen, they want to learn,
Right.
or they don't want to learn. You know, this is one thing why I think Hyde Park has a lot of good things. By the way, I think there is a benefit,
Absolutely.
especially more recently, the past few years. But one of the downfalls of YouTube and online dawah and Hyde Park is it gives people the wrong impression of dawah. So a lot of people actually get put off dawah. Number one, they think, well, I'm not qualified to give dawah because I can't argue like Muhammad Hijab or Hamza Zotsis or whoever is in Hyde Park. You know, it's you know, I'm not qualified to do dawah. And in reality, you know, this is only in Hyde Park. Hyde Park has the worst of the worst, or the most difficult people to deal with, if you like.
Right.
You know, and the reality on the ground, on the everyday people you're speaking to on the street, they're not going to be like that. So it actually puts a lot of people off dawah. And also it gives people the impression that dawah is actually being taken care of. But when in reality there's very little dawah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very important.
You know, there's not actually that much dawah in the whole world.
Right.
To be quite honest with you, we could probably connect with most da'is throughout the world through two contacts.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like there's very little dawah. I mean, UK, Canada, America are seen as some of the where the most dawah is taking place, really.
Right.
And in reality, it's not that much.
True.
So much more is needed.
Yeah.
And we need people to get involved in dawah. And I think one of the best way forward is, like you said, taking care of your own household, your own surroundings, your colleagues at work. If everyone can play a part and do that,
right,
I think that would be a really big help.
Fantastic. Yeah. So on that point, I would like to, you know, extract three important things out of there, right? So number one, in terms of complexity, right? So as you said, like dawah can be really simple, right? So there are many people. If I just ask you, okay, I'm gonna be like quiet. You tell me what's your message, right? You preach me, for example, right? So even if you just get your basic message, right? So like just a basic message that, look, if somebody asks, I can explain what Islam is, how Islam benefits you and today, and how it benefits you after death.
In a few minutes,
right?
5 minutes.
So 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you can do that, right? If you have some, and then that does not, like, you just spend a few hours and you can have that pitch, right? And you just go and you start sharing this thing. Look, bro, I have this message. I want to share it with you, right? And then I just want you to leave you with that. I'm not going to argue on that. Right? And if you want more information, I can connect you with people who can give you more information. If we just able to do that, I think, you know, we can have like huge results. And I've seen that many people who actually become Muslim and stick to Islam, they didn't come with a lot of debates, right? I mean, I have a lot of live dialogue that, you know, from what happens at Abu Huraira. Sometimes I recorded, the person allows it. You can see like how the dialogue goes, right? You don't need any sort
especially with sincere people. People who are actually sincere and want to learn about Islam, they're not arguing. They're not trying to disprove everything.
So from those three things, number one is dawah can be really simple. You can learn it like regardless of what your level is, and then you can put that message, right? Then people ask me, okay, how do you know Islam is true, right? So, you know, the fitra example, I mean, this is something I use and I find it very powerful. Like, you know, this phone, right? So if I put the wrong finger, it does not unlock, right? But if I put the right finger, it does unlock. Did it? Yeah, so the point is that it has this fingerprint.
I think you've been hacked, bro. It's not working.
So this fingerprint scanner that it has, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this, you know, fitra, or this operating system, BIOS, or whatever you want to call it, that can actually detect. So if I say, you know what, there's a God who actually killed his son, and now you do whatever, and or if I say, okay, you know what, there's no afterlife, it would not resonate with your heart. It would not resonate with your heart. So if you give this a simple message and you say, okay, this is what Islam is, and one of the
filter connects with it.
And then, so one of the we were talking about it last night, right? I mean, is there any book that even claims that I'm from God?
Only the Quran.
Right? I mean, like there's no book that actually even claims it, right? So, like, I mean, there's so many basic things that are so strong about Islam, and then you just pass on that message, right? So that's first, but the dawah is simple. Now, on the contrary, on the opposite extreme, I mean, because again, you have extreme for everything, right? So the other extreme is that people expose themselves to a lot of fitna, right? And then they start doubting Islam themselves. Right? So subhanAllah, I mean, may Allah protect us all, bro. Like the dawah that affected me and I started taking religion seriously was put on a platform, right? It was on a YouTube channel. Back then, YouTube was not as popular. There was a website, and from there I saw Dr. Bilal Phillips' lecture, and that was like really thought-provoking to me. And the person who actually used to run that website is an atheist now.
Oh yeah, I'm aware of this.
So that really hit me, because it was so close to home, right? That you don't know what state you will die, right? So the reason I was saying this is, you know, the Prophet ﷺ told us about Dajjal, right? When Dajjal come, you don't go, okay, let me debate with Dajjal or fight with Dajjal. You run away, right? So you need to also realize that, look, this is my level, right? So, you know, I'm gonna approach people with this level, and, you know, anybody who's more sophisticated than this, if I don't have the time, and I don't have to have the time, I have other things going on, you know, I'll just like leave that person, I'll move on to the next person, right? I don't need to go and put myself in a situation where I haven't studied. And
the point is that you're accountable just to give the basic message of Islam.
Exactly.
That's all you have to do. That's your job. You know, you're not there to convince them to the very end and go through every argument and every, you know, just understand, give them the basic message, your job's done. If you can do more than that, great. You know, if you can do more studies and you know more, that's great. If you don't, pass them on to someone else.
Exactly. Yeah, because that can actually damage you. Right? And then you have to protect yourself first, right? And then the other thing that can damage you, and that kind of goes into our own development, our own tarbiyah, is what I also realized, another thing that damages, so obviously you have this thing, right? You can confuse yourself, you can damage yourself. And, you know, the whole fame and wealth and, you know, show, all that sort of can affect your sincerity. That's a very well-known thing. The third thing that is very subtle is if you're only hanging out with non-Muslims and new Muslims, it can actually affect you as well, right? Because now your bar drops, right? So for example, you know, let's say you're coming in and you are hanging out with, you know, du'as and tulab, and they're studying and they're memorizing Quran and they do their nawafil and so on and so forth, sunnah prayers, and you had your bar high, right? And then you were like, okay, I'm aiming for that and I'm trying to fast Monday and Thursday, whatever, right? Now, when you're only hanging out with non-Muslims or new Muslims that are very fresh, their bar is very low. right? So you can start getting exposed to a lot of sins and talks that can desensitize you towards other sins. So if you're not balancing your own company with people that you can look up to, you know, you can be suffering, and that was the main thing, right? You know, you could be the great da'i, but how you're going to be ending up is not, you know, it's not certain. So those were the things I would say. Okay, dawah is simple. You can make it simple, and don't hurt yourself. Like protect yourself first, right? And then I guess, I mean, we could potentially go into the after shahada part into that, right?
Yeah.
And then
what would you do? What's your process?
Yeah. So I think first of all we have to understand that a lot of people think after shahada is support, right? And that was another reason I started using the word coaching, right? Well, it's not about support, right? The major challenge with new Muslims is not that they have financial or social or economical challenges, right? The major challenge, as you said in the beginning, is they're not convinced. Right? Or I mean, even if they're convinced, it's an intellectual conviction. It's not in their heart.
It's true,
So I mean, for example, like how many people are convinced that, look, you know what, this food is not good for me, I need to change my diet. Many people, I myself am convinced that, okay, I need to change my diet, right? Am I doing it? Right? So that's the whole point. Like, how do you take it from that intellectual conviction to a plan, to a follow-up? So one of the things I said, so I said, like, it's a new Muslim dawah. So you have to continue the dawah after the shahada, right? So when you start thinking about, because and people say, oh yeah, I want to help new Muslims, right? Their understanding is, I'm going to teach them salah tomorrow. They don't want to learn salah. Like, do you think it's someone who's super fresh and then you're going to give them to say something in the new language? They will have a lot of resistance to that. So you have to basically,
especially in the West, when Islam is not forced.
Exactly.
You have to convince them,
and there's so much distractions, right? We are overall, like, you know, one of my teachers says that, look, you know what, in Canada life is easy. Compared to US or compared to UK or what have you, overall life is easy. People have some sort of funding, this and that. So, you know, everybody's comfortable, right? There's no pain, and sometimes you need that sort of pain to drive you to take actions as well. So how do you take, so first of all, our approach needs to change. We need to understand what is happening in the new Muslim space, right? And then the first key thing is, bro, like, you know, the person is taking the shahada, that is intellectual conviction, but you have to build on that dawah, right? So that's very important. That means that, you know, teaching salah to him may not be the point yet. You may just have to strengthen the dawah, and this was a hard thing for me to realize as well. Right?
Just to keep trying to keep him coming to you, coming to the masjid,
exactly,
for the help.
So anything, right? So now when it comes to that point, right? So I think, again, as you may have noticed, I try to break down things to keep them simple, what have you. So first thing is the da'i who is giving the dawah, because that's the first point, right? First interception that you have. So if I am giving you shahada and I'm like, yeah, bro, your sins are forgiven and you're going to Jannah, I gotta first of all do my job properly, right? I want to make sure that you understand what has just happened now, right? So I would say, like, for example, the example I like to use, I'm like, okay, look, bro, you know, Niagara Falls here, right? Or any resort, I've given you like a direction that you can now, you have this free pass. If you drive there, you can have this amazing life. But the condition is, not just because you know the direction on your phone and you have a pass to that resort, you actually have to drive there. Right? Now, if you're going to be taking 15 minutes drive and then stopping at Tim Hortons, then at McDonald's, then at D-Spot, and then you would never reach your destination. So now, for example, if you realize who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and how to get to the Jannah, you actually have to put in effort and basically aligning your desires to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So the da'i himself giving that sort of responsibility on the person who has accepted Islam.
Giving the correct dawah in the first place.
This is because that's the first contact, right? And many times you don't know which contact would be your last contact. Right? So you always want to have that sort of balance. And after that, I try to distribute things into three areas. And you have a chat with them. Like, look, now you have done that. Like, these are some of the things that can make it easy for you, right? So I make it into three parts. So number one is you need to motivate yourself to worship Allah. How can you do that? Right? So you have a chat with the person, like, how are you going to have that? How can you motivate yourself? So you need to have either, you know, certain things on your phone that you can read or watch or listen to, because most people won't talk to you about God. Right? So as a non-Muslim, you're becoming Muslim, you're going by your day, you may not even encounter any chat about God, right? And if you're only listening about, let's say, you know, money, that's all you're going to be thinking about, or, you know, power, or sports, whatever. So how can you motivate yourself, right? And sometimes it could be this content, sometimes it could be coming to the masjid, coming to a class, having friends that talk about this, whatever. So figuring out a way that would motivate that individual, and everybody will be different, right?
Yeah.
At the very least, you and I, let's have a meeting once a week in person. If you can't do it in person, let's get on a video call. And these are stuff I've implemented, and you can see examples on that on my channel. So it's doable, right? And that's something I'm focusing on, because now for it to scale, you need more people to be doing the same thing. So that's motivation. The second thing is the technical stuff. So what do you need to be able to pray? How do you pray, right? So that technical component, I would tailor it depending on the person. Some people are fast, some people are slow. If the person is not ready, and we are having a weekly follow-up or whatever, maybe the technical component would be very less. And then the third thing is, the accountability. Okay, what is your plan? What can you commit to me today? Can you commit to one prayer a day? Now, we're not changing the religion, but we have to be realistic. People don't pray 5 times a day, right? Okay, can you commit to one prayer a day? Or can you come and we'll pray one prayer together? Or even if not, okay, how about can you commit to watching this video channel for like 10 minutes a day, and us having once a week meeting, or you coming to a once a week, whatever. So if you take those 3 components and then you gradually basically increase on that. So that's kind of like how I see it, right? But I mean, it's important because sometimes, bro, I mean, like when I've seen on a street dawah, right? So you would see a person say, yeah, you know what? I became Muslim. I took my shahada, right? And the da'i would walk away from him and go and have a chat with other person. Bro, you clearly see this guy's not practicing. He's intellectually convinced. So what's next? Right? I mean, I get it. It's boring from that angle. I mean, there's no, there's no intellectual debate. But if that's the goal, to get everybody close to Allah, what are you going to do about that person? If you're not going to do it, who's going to do it, right? So that's something to think about. Like, how can we basically start tapping onto it?
Jazakallah khair, bro. MashaAllah, some very insightful points there. How to deal with new Muslims and actually get involved in dawah. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish?
No, I think this is about it. Like, again, just like, first of all, protect yourself, keep evaluating ourselves, like what we are doing with our time, where we are going, and if you are into dawah, so think about like, what's the goal of the dawah? Right? Are we just like leaving the people hanging, or can we do something better, right? So, I mean, in terms of trainings and stuff right now, I know, for example, IslamWise is doing a lot of push on online training and different things like that. So it's something that people can actually benefit from, and have these type of organization. I mean, again, if I were to give you,
have your own channel as well.
Yes, so I have a channel. It's under Coach Zubair. So over there you have playlists. I have an organized playlist in like, okay, how do you present Islam? Actual live dialogue with a non-Muslim, live dialogues with new Muslims, and things like that. So idea was, okay, people can then actually see the content. Again, I'm not saying that it's a super exciting, competitive stuff, but it's like, okay, how can you have this sort of dialogue with people, right? I mean, like when we use new products like Uber, Lyft, or LinkedIn, Facebook.
Do you have shares in these things? I mean, you've mentioned a lot of products.
No, the reason I was saying
a lot of product placement.
No. So we have a lot. We can learn a lot, right? Because look, I mean, as Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, وَتَرْجُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَرْجُونَ, right? So you expect from Allah what they don't expect, right? So we should definitely be upping our game. So one of the things that they do is, as you can see, that is, when you create a free account is free, right? But then they follow up, they say, yeah, you know what, here's 5 free rides for you, check out Uber today. This person saw your profile on LinkedIn, because they are now what they call it as customer success teams. So they're saying, okay, you are convinced, you are trying their product, but they want to make sure that they can help you see that how can product change your life. So that mentality, we need to have that. And that's a different mentality than support. Support is me saying, oh, you know what, Uber is not working, and I call them. That's support, right? But their customer success team is like, okay, how can they ensure that I'm using their product? So they are reaching out to me. And the reason I'm saying this is that this is the difference in, if we are focused on convert success versus convert support. Right. So if you're focused on convert success, thinking, okay, what can I do to get the person close to Islam, as opposed to taking it as a support call.
It's good. Jazakallah khair, bro. MashaAllah, very insightful points. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Inshallah, maybe we can do another podcast in the future sometime, when I come back to Toronto.
Inshallah.
And we look forward to seeing you in the UK again.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
So Jazakallah khair, thanks for your help, and we'll join you next time. Join us next time for the Young Smirks. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء